Good afternoon. I'm Dr. Terry James Gingrass, and this is Dr. G's ADHD Chat, the show trying to make the world safe for ADHDers. I am a clinical psychologist and the parent of, well, at least two ADHD kids and very possibly an ADHD wife. Um, that was not a diagnosis we thought much about, 50 years ago, but it's everywhere now, and I apparently married into a whole family of those folks. Wanted to hit on this topic. I'm not sure why it took me so long, frankly. When I was in grad school, I minored in addiction studies, and the whole time I was in the Air Force, every base I went to, I did the drug and alcohol evaluations. So I've had at least some experience with it, much more than most, I would dare say. And one of the things that ADHD does is makes it more likely that the ADHDer will have a substance abuse issue. Okay, we know that some of, I mean, it's the whole what causes what is very mixed in this whole thing. Okay, with alcohol, it's most likely trauma. What you get is you get two brothers raised with an alcoholic father, and one of them becomes a hopeless alcoholic, and the other becomes a teetotaler. So did the environment cause the one to be an alcoholic and not the other? There's pretty much no way to tell, and it's a hard question at best to ask. But um, alcohol abuse and just general substance abuse, you've got people who are impulsive by definition. One of the characteristics of ADHD is impulsivity. And, you get a bunch of kids together, ADHD teenagers are more likely to try drugs. And then maybe they settle on alcohol, who knows? But alcohol is, although it is very common, we have all kinds of shows that show a lot of drinking. And without much in terms of the way, of the consequences thereof. Like you look at, oh, what is that? It's a police show about an Irish family in New York. Let's just leave it at that. We'll escape the lawsuit, hopefully. But every show, those people they drink a lot, and they drink for all kinds of reasons. And it's alcohol is not, in spite of being a very common substance and readily available, can cause harm. Matter of fact, it causes more deaths than any other substance, more than the opioids. Although the opioids get a lot more attention, in the dreaded fentanyl epidemic. Alcohol still is killing more people than those substances, than the opioids, and the rate of alcohol abuse has increased. And it's not just COVID. It was going up before COVID. But COVID certainly did nothing to slow it down. And like alcohol related deaths have increased substantially. It increased 2019, it increased by 25% over the previous year. That's just huge. And, that's not counting car accidents and other accidents that happen because somebody's inebriated. It's just huge. And it is related to a lot of other mental health issues. There are some people who drink sort of reactively, kind of like if it's going to help them make them feel better or deal with stress, that sort of stuff. That's kind of the dangerous stuff. And the other is just, so I can uh, relax at this social gathering kind of thing. And that's supposedly not as bad. Although, if you go to any social gathering, wedding, whatever, by the time, people have been drinking for 2 or 3 hours, it's not all that pleasant an environment, honestly. That's when the cousins usually get into it and all kinds of trouble happens. And I mean, the issues are substantial here all the way through. I mean, I can't sugarcoat that at all. But I know that, uh, let's see, what is it? 140,000 deaths for adults between the ages of 20 and 64. And that's 2015 to 2019. And typically, traditionally, alcohol abuse was a man's disorder. Back in the days when men used to go to the saloon, which is no different from going to the pub, and drink it up and all that sort of stuff. It was considered a man's problem. And, even most of the early abstinence programs were woman led. It's interesting, but women are catching up. Excessive drinking among women is growing rapidly, and women typically have more effect from alcohol. They're typically lighter in body size and all that. So, what one shot of bourbon, say, does to a woman is going to cause much less problems for a man. That's why even the recommendations, which I'm not sure how closely we should follow those, say a man can drink 2 drinks a day. The drink being, a shot of liquor, 12-ounce beer, 4 ounces of wine. And a woman should only be drinking 1 of those. And even with that, even like 1 drink a day can cause significant health problems in terms of cancer, heart disease, that sort of stuff. They don't, I don't know, I'm sure a significant number of the folks who are watching this right now drink fairly regularly. But I know for me anyway, if I drink 2 drinks every day, by the 3rd or 4th day, I am not feeling like normal. And I wonder about other folks. And I'm not by any means a teetotaler. I don't come from a long line of teetotalers. So it's I would say, a relatively unbiased opinion. I think if you drink every day, you're probably fooling yourself as to whether or not you have some issues. And causes, like I said earlier, causes are all over the place, but they're saying at least 50% of it comes from environmental stuff, traumas and that sort of stuff. And parents who are alcoholic, which is a trauma, I suppose. And then genetic components are all over the place, and it's usually, and even when I was first studying alcoholism, we were taught that some people just process alcohol differently than others. You get the stories. I knew I was an alcoholic first time I ever went out for a drink. I drank everybody I was with under the table and didn't feel a thing. Or I been a drunk for 20 years, but I've never had a hangover in my life. I guess we don't really have a lot of proof of that sort of thing. We do know that people who are more impulsive, duh, and uh, less conscious of self-regulation issues, which are pretty much the ADHD population, have more troubles with alcohol abuse. It's, you know, inhibitory control. Why don't you have it? Well, we know why you don't have it. Your neurotransmitters aren't quite what the norm says they should be, and that's, uh, that means somebody says, "Hey, you want another drink?" and you've already had one, and you have another, or you've had two or three, and why not? No big deal. And that's the fascinating thing about alcohol, is that we kind of think of it as safer, and got to watch out for those terrible drugs like heroin and that sort of stuff. Those will kill you. Frankly, alcohol is more dangerous than heroin. I imagine I'll hear about that one. Okay, but if you withdraw from heroin, you're an addict, you withdraw from heroin, it's going to be like you've got a bad case of the flu. You might throw up, have diarrhea, all sorts of unpleasantness. But it's probably not going to kill you. But if you're an alcohol addict, that is, you need alcohol to feel normal, and you all of a sudden stop, you can die. Delirium tremens, which is when you go through withdrawal from alcohol, can kill you. And basically it has to do, your body has a whole bunch of uppers and downers, okay? And when you're drinking a ton of alcohol, your body increases its naturally occurring uppers, stimulants, okay? So, and then all of a sudden you quit drinking, and that load of depressants isn't holding everything down, so it's a nice balance. The stimulation is way up through the roof, to such an extent that your heart can basically explode or blow up a blood vessel, or that sort of thing, or your blood pressure shoots so high. And that's why alcohol withdrawal is not something that you should mess around with. When I was doing an internship in VA inpatient alcohol treatment program, we were getting guys that were scraped up off the streets in Tucson, Arizona. They were living on the street. They were drinking whatever they could get their hands on. They weren't eating. They weren't working. They weren't doing much of anything. And then they'd be unconscious on the street, and the police would call the ambulance, and they'd bring them to our hospital, and they would go through a detox. And sometimes it was a few days, sometimes it was a few weeks. It was done based on how badly the alcohol affected them, okay? And it was dangerous. So it was medically supervised, combination, of a depressant medication, barbiturates, and then it was that was gradually withdrawn, and until finally you were stable without any downer kind of medication on board, balancing out the uppers that your body was naturally creating. And so you'd see some, and then they would be transferred to our ward. And for like 2 or 3 days, all they did was sit in the community meetings and shake. And then about, third week or so, they would all of a sudden, "Hi, I'm Frank, and I'm an alcoholic." And those would be the first words we ever heard them say in the community. So it's not a benign addiction, okay? It is terrifying. You can have, when you're going through withdrawal, you can have hallucinations, you can have seizures, uh, and other nasty kinds of effects. And um, like I said, it's not the kind of thing where you should lock a guy in a room and wait till he stops screaming before you let him out. That may end up being fatal for him and life changing for you. So it's not something you should be doing. And alcohol, okay, I've been doing alcohol stuff for a long time. There have been, every few years, you get a bunch of research that suggests that controlled drinking or some variation thereof is good enough, will help will help alcoholics more than the traditional programs like AA, which are total abstinence. Okay, well, I know when I've been around, groups where we have alcoholics are so extreme that they've had to be hospitalized. You always have them have one or two of them saying, "Yeah, I tried controlled drinking. Look where I am." Or an alcohol counselor who's, "Yeah, I tried that controlled drinking stuff and I had 2 more hospitalizations before I was able to quit completely." So it's I don't know if it's unusually optimistic um, researchers or whatever, but if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. If it sounds too easy, it probably is. I know from a lot of years of experience watching people go through withdrawal and trying to get to abstinence, that it's not pleasant and it's not easy. That making that first year, to get your first year chip, if you're in AA, you don't usually get there the first time. Let's just put it that way. And sometimes have 2 or 3 times they've fallen off the wagon and had to restart it. But so alcohol, you need to take it seriously. Okay, I guess that's the bottom line on all this. And it's, like I said, there's still a lot we don't know about it. Okay, what we do know is that it's dangerous. It can cause death, and not just from car accidents, but just from the actual act of abusive drinking. And it tears up families. If ADHD didn't do enough, alcohol abuse will do even more. And it doesn't do anything good for an alcoholic. Tends to make them even more impulsive and frequently more angry than usual. So we don't recommend it. Okay, and you would wonder about combining it with other drugs that might be used with ADHD. We'll talk a little bit more about that in future shows. I'm planning on going through a bunch of different medications, or not medications. Some of them are medications. Anyway, substance of abuse, and particularly how they are related, impacting with ADHD. Okay, we'll catch you next week. And I'm Dr. Terry James Gingrass. My website is terrygingrassphd.com. You can sign up for my list, and trying to get this organized. Okay, I have been a psychologist for 40 years. I've been in private practice for 20 years. I'm trying to slow it down, the private practice, and do more on the internet kind of thing so I can reach more people. But it's tricky. It's not as easy as running a private practice. It's there are things you can screw up because of the technology. You can screw it up because you forgot, all kinds of stuff. So just be advised that I'm doing the best I can and trying to be helpful. Okay, so sign up. If you don't get good stuff, let me know. Please let me know. And if you have ideas for new shows for me to do, please let me know. I've been doing this for about 8 years now, and occasionally it gets the well gets a little dry, as they say. Okay, I will catch you next week, and remember, we need ADHDers. We need ADHDers who are confident and know how to compensate for their ADHD, because they are the problem solvers, the ones who are divergent thinkers, the ones who see new solutions to problems that convergent thinkers just don't see. So we need some of that. We don't train it in our school systems, and we'd be in a mess without it. Okay, catch you next time.